Well, I asked, where's the beef? Let's call this for what this is. Oh my God! They are so hopelessly woke. How dare you? That is the intellectual capital of the left today. Give me a break. You are now watching the Daily Roundup. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Daily Roundup on this, a Wednesday, March 1st, 2023. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a little bit about my co-host. Do you know, folks, that today is World Compliment Day? It is celebrated to spread joy through simple verbal affirmations of appreciation. And I want to give my friend a compliment. I really, really do, but you know how things are with HR these days, folks, so I dare not. She is the she-devil with a spatula. She is the Khaleesi of BC. She is Drea Humphrey. How are you there, Drea?
I'm good. I always love your intro, and I don't know if HR's doing the best with you. I'm just joking. It was good. No, it's good. I didn't know it was compliment day, so I'm going to have to remember that. And
what kind of compliment would you give me, Drea, on World Compliment Day?
You know what? You were and still are my favorite rebel, even before I was a rebel. So that's my compliment.
Wow. Forget about World Compliment Day. I think I just heard the Christmas miracle. That's incredible. And for you, you know what? I'm going to break my spidey senses warning of not saying anything nice to a coworker. I'm going to break that rule. You know, Drea, I have, aside from your excellent journalism, of course, I have always loved your voice. I think a second career waits for you as a narrator of those audiobooks. You know, it is just so nice, so reassuring. Actually, you know what? Maybe you better not do an audiobook because I might fall asleep at the wheel and just drift off and then go off a bridge or something. But no, you do have a wonderful voice. So thank you.
I've had the odd email asking me if I took voice lessons, and the answer is no.
So there you go. Another potential career. So Drea, before we move on, a packed sausage as always. I think this is the part where you tell people what we're ostensibly trying to do here in this next hour.
Right. So this is the Daily Roundup Live that we do to bring you the news as it comes. We talk through it, and you have an opportunity to talk through it with us so others can join in. And to do that, you can do a live chat either at Rumble or Odyssey. If you go to those sites, you can connect with us. And if you make a $5 or more donation, we make an effort to read that, get your input, and make you part of the show. But that donation also goes to support our independent journalism. It keeps Rebel News around for all who want to know the other side of the story. So check us out on Rumble and Odyssey.
Indeed. And of course, we do depend on the donations and the generosity of our viewers. Drea, you know, I get some perverse amusement from our haters. Oh, there goes Rebel News begging. Like, as opposed to what? Directly deducting it from your bank accounts like the mainstream media does. Exactly. We just ask. If you say yes, we love you. And if you don't, we still love you. You get most of the content for free. So I think really it is the most honest way of asking for money, as opposed to getting the Trudeau Liberals to do the Rogers negative option billing out of your bank account. It's actually worse than negative option billing, because back then when Rogers tried that, selling you TV stations you didn't want, you could actually option out. Here, no. You're optioned in and there is no way out. So there you go.
Exactly.
Well, Drea, there was a song in the early 80s by a band, an English band, I believe, called China Crisis. I think my favorite song of theirs was Working with Fire and Steel. And wow, here we are in 2023. You talk about a China crisis indeed. This thing about interference in our elections, it is just getting worse and worse. More evidence is mounting from, I would argue, a very good source, CSIS. And yet,
it's a pretty good source.
I think so. And yet, what is absolutely appalling to me, Drea, is how blackface is once again, of all people, playing the race card. Talking about anti-Asian hate. Let me tell you something.
Of course.
I listened to an interview. It was our friend Ross McLean, former Toronto police officer, and his speculation, and I totally agree with this, is that whoever that CSIS agent was, that is the whistleblower, he or she is most likely Chinese or at least Asian, because you would need to be able to speak and hear, and understand rather, and write Mandarin, especially if you're doing wiretapping, if this is the way you're getting this information. So is, Blackface McGroper saying that a Chinese CSIS agent potentially is a racist against his or her own ethnicity? I mean, that doesn't make sense, but that's besides the point. Drea, this has to be investigated.
Oh, yeah, it definitely has to be investigated. And you're right about that. Many of the Canadians that came here came from China. A lot of them came here because they wanted to get away from the government there.
Exactly.
So a lot of them are very aware of this, and they themselves want answers. I've seen them on social media saying, hey, this isn't racism. I'm Chinese. I want answers. I want to know about this. But it's not surprising Trudeau goes for that card. And he also went for the COVID card. These are two things that have worked in his favor, because he said, through the pandemic, this type of, racism against Chinese people has been heightened. So he went to the two go-tos to try to gloss over this, but it absolutely needs to be investigated, especially since in a couple of years, we're going to have another election. We have to understand what's going on here.
Drea, going back to the COVID card, I haven't paid much attention to that. I did not come across any kind of racism against Chinese people due to COVID-19. Yes, it originated out of China. Yes, there is mounting evidence that indicates that the Institute of Virology in Wuhan either had an accident or deliberately released this virus. But the point is, the biggest victims of the Mandarins in Beijing with the Chinese Communist Party are the people of China itself, who have their rights and freedoms abridged. The idea, this preposterous idea that somebody in another country would see someone who's Chinese or Asian and go, oh, I'm going to take a shot against the coronavirus. I'm going to, give this guy a punch. It's absolutely preposterous. So what data, what evidence was Blackface relying on to make that case?
Well, and not only that, if there was one person who said a racial slur at that time, of course, that's racism. That doesn't mean it was more than before. And I was one of those people who was terrified of COVID. In January 2020, I was wearing N95s in the grocery store. It would just be me and like one other Asian person. I'm like, yeah, I see you. And I would get mocked. And grown men would come up to me and cough on me as a joke because they thought I was like insane. And so I did see things like that where it was Asian people wearing a mask, I guess, too early for the norm, and they were getting sort of teased and mocked, and that's not okay. But it doesn't mean it's a racist thing. It's just an ignorance thing, right? So, I think when most of the politicians in Canada are going at the Asian hate, they tend to point at the United States, things that are happening there as well. So there's that.
Well, you know what? Did I hear you right that you said some people would come up to you and cough or pretend to cough? Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's borderline assault, if you ask me. I mean, my attitude with masks.
But it wasn't because I was black. It was because I was wearing a mask.
I realize that
it wasn't socially normal.
Well, to me, that doesn't matter. You don't want anyone coming up to you, even in non-COVID times. I don't want to get the cold or the flu, right? So I'm sorry that happened to you, Drea. But again, when you think of the fundamental building blocks of a nation, two spring to mind, both of which are under attack in my book. One is border sovereignty, right? We don't have that now. Hashtag welcome to Canada. And they are coming in by the thousands via Roxham Road. Blackface is playing up this idea that, there's nothing we can do with the third safe party agreement. Oh, actually there is. This is the biggest lie of all, by the way, Drea. You can build a wall or a fence. You don't have to let them in. This idea that it has to be renegotiated, no, it does not. So there's that. And secondly, is the integrity of our elections. When I go out, when you go out, and our viewers go out on election day and we cast our ballot, we are counting on a fair game. We don't want the fix being in for anyone. And the idea that the 2019 and the 2021 elections could have been influenced by a dictatorship, which, by the way, Blackface has great admiration for. He said that some 8 or 9 years ago. That is chilling to me. And I think, Drea, this is Watergate on steroids if this is the case.
Well, those allegations are quite, I mean, from anything from people being bussed over there to having who to vote for written on their arm. I mean, these allegations are intense. I think Dr. Leslyn Lewis did a tweet that just kind of shows screenshot of the legacy media sort of talking about these issues. It really is another scandal. It leaves you asking, how many scandals will it take? Does it take for a prime minister to get out? I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. But yeah, to gloss over this, so you've got some of the headlines there that have been going on. People want answers. One of the things I actually wasn't aware of until reading through some of this is that non-Canadians can vote in the Liberal Party. Maybe that's the same for the Conservatives too, as long as they live in that riding. I was not aware of that as well. So apparently there was allegedly international students coming and being told, if you want to, stand up for your country, you need to do this here. And again, whether you are pro CCP or against it, if you are an international student from there, you don't want to rock the boat. Right? If you are against the CCP, that's scary too. You might want to get on that bus and vote for who your government's basically telling you to vote for.
Yeah, and don't forget, Drea, the Chinese have an enforcement arm here. We have police stations. I just imagine that. There's another pillar of our democracy. Can you imagine another nation's police force being at play? And as I understand it from the people I talk to, they don't go around armed, but if there's anyone making too much of a rumbling against the regime in Beijing, they do the, hi, we understand you've got friends and family back in China. We'd be monitoring your social media.
Exactly.
It might be that we're going to have to ask you to fly back to answer for this, or else, they leave it up in the air. This is appalling. This is actually apparently happening in Canada. And let's talk about that Dr. Leslyn Lewis shopping list of what CISA's uncovered, Drea. Oh, here's a beauty. Oh, nothing fishy here, my friend. In 2014, the government of China sponsored a $1 million donation to the Pierre Trudeau Foundation. Are you kidding me?
That says it all right there.
Oh,
That's enough right there.
Do you think
and
that
the
might
other
be...
question... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Drea, please.
Well, I was just going to say, the other question is, CSIS has known this whole time, and we're just finding out now from a whistleblower? What's up with that?
You know what? You're bang on with any kind of, conspiracy theory that does come true. When you unravel it, it all comes down to who knew what when. And as a matter of fact, when I was at Nathan Phillips Square on Friday, when I got to, yell my questions at Trudeau, not because I'm mad at him. Well, I am mad at him, but it's because he's always a moving target running away, and I have to make sure he hears me. The question was, how long did you know about Chinese interference in our elections? And secondly, and probably the biggest question of all, Drea, were you complicit in that interference? Because why wouldn't he be? What was the goal of the Communist Party of China? It was to get conservative candidates, MPs, unelected because they had unfavorable views to the regime. And according to the party, 9 MPs lost their seats, 9 conservative MPs due to that. And B, it was to give the Justin Trudeau Liberals another minority government. That to me, that is so fascinating. Not a majority government, yet Trudeau's their man, but, you know, they want to keep their dog on a short leash,
Yeah.
right? You know, they don't want them going off the reservation because maybe the Chinese can then meddle and get another snap election in play. This is despicable. And so those are the biggest questions to be asked if we ever have any kind of investigation. But oh no, for blackface, this is all about anti-Asian hatred. There's nothing to see here. All the results are fine. Drea, I'm not buying it.
No. And I think more and more Canadians are not buying it too. So perhaps this is a blessing in the end when it comes to next election time.
Indeed. In fact, we might even have the results of a survey. I'll throw to it after our first ad break because more and more Canadians, they're not convinced everything is fair and square come election day. And this, to me, is gasoline on the fire, to say the least. So why don't we throw to our ad, and we'll see if we can dig up the latest survey of what Canadians have to say about our federal elections.
I am speaking to you at a moment of grave crisis, when violent and fanatical men are attempting to destroy the unity and the freedom of Canada.
But after weeks of dangerous and unlawful activities, after weeks of people being harassed in their neighborhoods and small businesses forced to close,
As democracy flourishes in Canada,
we don't always agree, and that's okay.
because individual liberty is cherished in Canada.
Our government will always defend freedom of expression and freedom of peaceful assembly.
It has now been demonstrated to us by a few misguided persons
After evidence of increased ideologically motivated violent extremism activity across the country,
just how fragile a democratic society can be.
it became clear that local and provincial authorities needed more tools to restore order and keep people safe.
These are matters of the utmost gravity, and I want to tell you what the government is doing to deal with them.
The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act.
The public's legitimate right to know why the government proclaimed an emergency and whether the actions it took were appropriate.
It is our view that there was no justification whatsoever to invoke the Emergencies Act.
It's so tough to watch. There's no reason for that. They were literally running the horses through the crowd.
The police came straight to me and he targeted me and he took his gun of tear gas and he actually shot me directly in my legs.
Was it worth invoking the Emergencies Act, ma'am, to trample on the rights and freedoms of Canadians?
Why do you think excessive honking means that the government should strip citizens away from their rights?
Our next and final witness is Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Order à l'ordre.
Yes, and sorry, I was distracted there. I was just dreaming of the idea of Trudeau on trial, as in a real criminal trial. And I went into this fantasy world, and we could only hope, can't we? But as I mentioned, Drea, let's take a look at the Angus Reid Institute poll. This doesn't look good for the Trudeau Liberals.
Nope.
2 in 3 Canadians believe Beijing did attempt election interference. There you have it. 2/3 of the country are saying something is fishy here. Something stinks to high hell. Wouldn't you think that would, let's put it this way. If Trudeau is right that there was no interference or the Chinese tried to interfere but weren't successful, okay, then let's put the conspiracies to rest, shall we? Let's have that investigation. And as Clara Peller used to say, where's the beef? Well, let him show us the beef. But I think there's something there, Drea.
Yeah, what do you have to hide? I mean, and I think the narrative is shifting away from there was no election interference. I think it is there, but they're saying, but it wasn't enough to really like do anything. And it basically did nothing. Like, you know what I mean? So that's what he's trying to say. But you're right. We've got to do this, and the MPs, they need to push for it. And I'm interested to see how the NDP MPs are handling this. How much do they want to know about this? Really, everybody should be on board demanding that. But these are great odds. I'm glad to see this, that many people are thinking this way, because it also means they're realizing that Prime Minister Trudeau is full of hot air when he continues to say nothing is happening here over and over. And you've got that percentage of Canadians not believing a word what he says. That's a good thing for Canada.
Oh, Andrea, given that huge number, 66%, that would mean that it's not just Conservatives along partisan lines thinking that way. It would have to include Liberals, NDP, right, Bloc Québécois, Greens, you name it. I mean, just on the basis of the number itself. You mentioned the NDP doing something. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice if Jagmeet grew a set, instead of like condemning blackface in the public square and then propping him up where it counts in the House of Commons, that he pulls his support, saying, and a perfect way too, whoa, this is not what I signed up for. I didn't know about Chinese collusion. How can I support this man in good faith? But one thing, Drea, that would interfere with the timeline of Jagmeet getting his full government pension. He's got to wait it out until 2025. That's the 6-year benchmark. So Mr. Rolex, Mr. BMW M3. Oh, yeah, he's really concerned about climate change with that Bavarian muscle car that he drives around with. I don't see him getting that come to Jesus moment anytime soon. What a disgrace. And we should also talk about a Toronto MP. That would be Han Dong. I know there's a punchline just dangling over home plate, but I dare not say it. And why don't we do a little video flashback to 2020 with Han Dong talking about, I almost forgot about this scandal, the WE scandal. There's just so many, I can't keep track of them. Why don't we run this clip and come right back with your thoughts, Drea?
Our goal here should not be to find guilt for guilt's sake, to find harm for harm's sake, or to tear down simply for the sake of political advancement. Our goal here, Chair, should be to do no harm, if not harm need to be done.
It almost sounds like he's reading something out of a fortune cookie. I mean, look, guilt for guilt's sake works for me. If the person's guilty, what is he actually saying there, Drea?
Yeah, it was definitely like he was speaking in a riddle there. And I think there's some interesting things about him as well. I think Ezra mentioned it in our chat, that he was kind of nowhere to be found on certain votes that took place in the House. For one, I think, was the vote on whether or not what's happening. Sorry. Can I have this, please? Yes, sorry. It's interrupted. But whether or not, the atrocities happening to the Uyghurs was in fact genocide, he was nowhere to be found, I believe, on that. No. So, yeah.
You're 100% right, Drea. Han Dong turned into Speedy Gonzales, and he got his butt out of the House of Commons, so he'd be absent for that vote, neither the vote for or against. But can you blame him? I mean, if his sugar daddy is the Beijing Mandarins, why are you going to offend them? Why are you going to call, a genocide a genocide? So he'd rather default that one. Absolute disgrace. And by the way, I understand next Wednesday, I think it's from 4 till 5, outside his constituency office. If you're in the Greater Toronto area, there's going to be a demonstration taking place. Not that I imagine Han Dong to be within 200 square kilometers of that demonstration.
No. None of that. I don't know about out there, but out here, none of them are coming to their offices. Our taxpayer dollars are going to these offices that every time I go somewhere or even walk by them, even if it's not a protest, No one's there. No one's working there. They're all working from home. Gone are the days since COVID where a citizen can just walk into their MLA or MP's office.
Well, I can tell you this, we're not that far away, our studio that is, from Mendicino's office, which is around Bathurst and Lawrence. And there are people there, but they keep that door locked and they bark at you through the intercom to send questions via email, which they never answer. And I bring up Marco Mendicino. He is the public safety minister. This is indeed a matter of public safety. Why isn't he doing something? But we know where his alliances run. I'm not a constitutional scholar, but I just wonder if it means that eventually CSIS or the RCMP have to follow through with charges if they have so much evidence that the law, the actual law of the land, is being broken. Maybe that's what's needed. Forget about public inquiries. We saw how well that worked with the Emergencies Act, didn't we, Drea? It was shocking, but not surprising. So I'm not sure.
Right. Maybe
I trust
one day.
Yeah,
we do have a chat I'm going to quickly read. And for those of you just tuning in, if you want to support the independent journalism that Rebel News does and also weigh into the news we're sharing, you can do so at Rumble or Odyssey by doing a live chat and a donation of $5 or more. Fraser McBurney says, my best friend is Chinese, and one of the best thing we have is the same birthday, February 26th. Oh, happy belated birthday, just 20 years apart. So I think that was more in response to us saying this isn't racism, just wanting to know these answers.
Yeah, in fact, Drea, it should be irrelevant to say, my best friend is Chinese, my favorite cuisine is Chinese. That's irrelevant. This is not about the people of the nation of China interfering or Chinese Canadians. This is about Beijing, the government, the communists, trying to tip the scales. So I see what Fraser's saying, but like I said, the truth of the matter, whether you have Chinese friends or not, should come forward sooner more than later.
All right. Are we moving on to my favorite topic?
I thought we might have another chat.
Oh, no, that's it.
Okay,
and it's not my favorite topic. It's the topic where I want to gouge my eyes out all the time.
Oh, no, don't do that.
Well, it's just, the cloud world. It just keeps spinning. I'm trying to find, somehow I've gotten sent out of here. You might see the title of the headline faster than I do, because I'm in the wrong spot. There we go. Thank you. So it looks here. So a sex education is suspended in Isle of Man. So that's in, I think, the Irish Seas. So a school there, after drag queen guest speaker tells 11-year-olds there are 73 genders. Now, I'm just going to pause there for a sec, because I do a lot of reporting on the sexual ideologies and indoctrination happening to kids. When did it get to 73 genders? Who comes up with this? It's like overnight this is happening. But basically, the article says that this disturbed students. It traumatized them to a sense, especially after one of the students was ordered out of the class by the drag queen because they said, well, there's only 2 genders. So now you have these radical sexual orientation presentations and things like that happening in schools. And all of a sudden, the drag queen is not only, normalizing the life of drag for these kids, but now they're the disciplinary. They're saying it's 73 genders. You don't agree with me, kid, get the heck out of here. Like, this is nuts. But kudos to the parents that got together and complained about it and had more success than it seems that Canadians are having when they do so. And it says, so the school has suspended its sex education curriculum after the drag queen guest reportedly told pupils that there were 73 genders and made the child get out. And an independent review has been launched into Queen Elizabeth II High School in Peel after year 7 children were left traumatized after being taught about sex change operations and sexual acts. So the review of the school's personnel, social health, and economic curriculum led by the island's government comes after parents raised concerns about the lesson. So, I mean, that's good that this is going under review. How it works in British Columbia is you have our sexual orientation curriculum, which is SOGI 123, sort of pre-approves all of these. And it's just a business. It's not like it's a government thing. It pre-approves all these resources, and then the teachers and the educators can just put them in. So there needs to be some sort of review done so that these situations are not happening. I think we have a little, you want to add something to that, and then we have a little clip that kind of just shows what's happening here.
Well, indeed, Drea. First of all, I want to correct you. You said you had no idea when it got up to 73 genders. I would say that's a downsized number. I've seen 84. I think 112. And I'm not trying to be funny. I mean it. And I remember the Elementary School Teachers Federation of Ontario was proposing this nonsense some 5 years ago. Yeah. In fact, if our producers can find the clip of poor Stephen Ledrew, the former Liberal Party of Canada president, on Tucker Carlson tonight, advocating this and advocating that Canada had free speech, and tried to define one of the genders. And ended up, well, you guessed it, losing his job at Bell Media. Oh, I love it when they eat their own.
Goodness.
But, you know, the most compelling thing about this, Drea, is that, especially during the last 3 years, how many times were we told, follow the science, follow the science? That meant social distancing. That meant wearing a mask.
Exactly.
That meant not congregating. That meant eventually double jab plus booster. Follow the science. Here is a student in that class, an 11-year-old, who says there are two genders. That's the science. But as Josh Alexander, who goes to a Catholic school in Renfrew, Ontario, discovered, you know, when he was standing up that there's two genders and that there was some male students pretending to be female so they could get into the girls' washroom and be voyeurs to the girls in the stalls, which is absolutely disgusting and despicable. Mm-hmm. He gets suspended. When he shows up at school, he gets arrested, Drea. This isn't just Catholic doctrine. This is scientific doctrine. I don't care if you want to dress up as the opposite sex, get hormone shots, slice and dice your genitalia. At the end of the day, you're a guy pretending to be a woman pretending to be a dude. That's it. That is the science. Yeah. And for, getting on the science train, this kid gets kicked out of class. This is insanity.
Yeah. It is insanity. And it's not even quality education. Again, these kids are in school. They're supposed to be getting prepared academically. And then they're learning sex acts? I mean, look at this clip here. If you guys have it, it's from Twitter. The drag queen is talking to kids. They look about 2 years old, can't even add 2 + 2 together. And he's talking to them about twerking. This is what he's educating the kids about.
Oh, no.
Saved. Michael went on to do great things. He taught twerking in schools. He started a new fitness phenomenon called Twerk to 20. No one's sure if it works or not, but they're giving money for it anyway. And he became the first Olympic athlete to win a gold medal for twerking. Michael was a national hero, all because he followed his heart, all because he was true to himself.
Well, Drea, I'm sorry, first things first, what parent allows their children of that age to basically pretend they're at a gay bar watching a drag queen perform? I question the parenting skills.
You can hear them laughing. Yeah. I can't even explain that. And maybe there's some people at this point going to these events because they think they're standing up for the LGBTQ community. They saw headlines that this is all about hate, so they come there. At that point, why are you not standing up and getting out? You're laughing. Like, this is insane. And now you have these little kids go, Mommy, that whole story. He talked about twerking multiple times. Now these kids are going to say, Mommy, Daddy, what's twerking? Like, how do you explain that to kids? This is child grooming. This is normalizing this stuff for babies. It's sick. And then meanwhile, is it Calgary, you have Pastor Derek Reimer getting arrested because he's saying, enough is enough. This shouldn't be happening, especially on taxpayer dollars. And, he's got his right to practice religion. He's going in and the police show up at his door and it looks like he was arrested. I think we have a clip of that.
And that was a public library, I believe. Yeah, let's show that clip and see how he was treated.
Hello?
Derek?
Yeah, hi.
Derek, I'm calling from Mass News CPS. Can we talk about what happened on the weekend?
Why are you showing up at my home?
So
why are you showing up at my home?
Because this is where you live, right?
Yeah, you could call me and we could...
So what was that?
You could have called me.
I've been trying to.
When?
This morning.
Yeah, what time is it? No, she's okay.
We need to talk about what happened on the weekend at Seaton, right?
Why do we need to talk about it?
Because you're going to be arrested for it and charged.
Okay.
So we can go do it this morning, or I can just put warrants out for you.
Charged with what?
Mischief and causing a disturbance.
Okay, let me get dressed.
Okay, you good with that?
Just give me a minute, okay?
Yeah, you betcha. Thanks, pal.
Drea, I agree that police involvement was called for, except they went to the wrong guy. If we have the video of what happened the Love Trumps Hate community supporting this perverse drag queen performance in front of minors, they were the ones throwing haymakers and knocking Pastor Reimer to the ground. Why aren't the cops going there? In fact, just to back up what I'm saying, in case you don't believe me, folks, I think we have some video of that. Let's check out that evidence.
Yeah, who are those men throwing him out? Who are they?
We are now calling the police. Stop. We have the police coming, so it is your choice to leave or deal with the police.
Very abusive in there.
We are going
For
to...
love is love.
Hey,
that was like very hateful, very abusive.
Why are you disrupting the program?
Because it's wicked.
Guys, okay. As a parent of kids in there, you need to get out.
Yeah, Dre, I might be wrong, but that looks like the textbook definition of assault when you throw somebody to the ground. And let's keep in mind, that was a public library, I understand. So it's taxpayer funded. He has every right to be there. Why aren't the police investigating the drag queen people who profess love, but by their actions demonstrate otherwise?
I don't know. I mean, in that clip, you can't see what just happened before, but he's holding on to the door. So it looks to me as though they were pushing him out. I'm sure he was saying what he came to say, and they actually pushed him out. So you're right. Is there an investigation happening there? Are the police going? It seems like it was very early in the morning and showing up and arresting them as well. My other question is this going to be the next slew of pastors, of Christian pastors we start to see getting arrested in Canada, maybe even in prison? Is it going to be the ones that are starting to say, this has gone too far with what you guys are doing to the kids, and start coming and speaking about this? Are we going to start to see them being imprisoned in Canada?
Yeah, I think they might be. Drea, to the point right here, I don't even know exactly how this became a thing, drag queen story time. I mean, I first heard of it about 5 years ago. I think it was the Kingston Library. We were going to go and check it out. We thought it was preposterous. It was sold out. Again, I question parents bringing their children to such a thing. But it's gone from that and a statistical anomaly to, it's almost as though, Drea, if you're a library or a shopping mall and you don't have drag queen story time, oh my, what a weirdo. How come you don't have drag queens addressing the kids? It's incredible. And I think at the end of the day, this is all about Marxism writ large. This is all about tearing down society, building it up in a Marxist utopia, which of course never comes to truism. And let me put it this way, Drea. If I said 10 years ago, no, even 5 years ago, you know what, Drea? I'm going to have society framed in such a way that not even a U.S. Supreme Court judge, a female judge at that, will be able to define what a woman is. Would you have taken me on that bet if I proposed that 5 years ago? You probably would.
No, and
look what's happened.
How far it's come. Yeah, I wouldn't have believed that in just a few years ago. And like we just said, now it's 70 plus genders. Of course, you can't define, if this is what kids are being taught, of course they're not going to be able to define a woman and a man. You know, forget the science. So, and that's another thing that puzzles me is, you're right, just a few years ago, the vast majority of people would think that this isn't okay, it's not acceptable, it doesn't make sense. How do we progress this fast into throwing people out who have that view, physically throwing them out?
And the age of the audience, Drea, I mean, 11 years old. I'm thinking back when I was 11-year-old, if I was learning about the 73 genders, and I know one is pansexual, my first thoughts would be, what, somebody likes to have sex with pans? Like cooking pans? I mean, like, you know, that's how an 11-year-old thinks. I mean, think Beavis and Butthead. I mean, what are you talking about? 73 different genders. Absolutely unbelievable. And I think what we have to do is to take a stand against this kind of wokeism because I even know, because you mentioned the LGBT community, we should say, Drea, there are gay men, lesbian women, even drag queens saying
trans
this
as well
is not right.
Yeah. It's not that community. They're using that community. We've seen this many times before. Black Lives Matter. It's not that community that's pushing this. It's radical, as you said, Marxists and sex activists that are just running with it and using that community to do so.
Indeed. In fact, have you noticed the trend recently, Drea, because it was pointed out to me, whenever you see, and it doesn't have to be a drag queen story event, it has to be any kind of demonstration that will attract Antifa. Well, you know, Antifa is a bit of a hard sell in certain circles, even with those who are sympathetic to their goals. So what they bring now is not the Antifa flag, and there is one. They bring the rainbow flag because you couch yourself in that rainbow flag, and it's like Superman's indestructible cape. You cannot be harmed. Yeah, because you're going to be called a homophobe, a transphobe. You know the drill. So it's very interesting to see people who aren't of that community, who are all about anarchy and fascism, not anti-fascism, despite their title. They bring along this flag all the time because it's kind of like their get-out-of-jail-free card, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I guess that they've caught on to something because it seems to be working.
Yeah. That's why if you check out Ben Bankus for mayor, he's got something on social media. Him and his assistant are at Nathan Phillips Square. And even though their quest for mayor and their platform has nothing to do with transgendered people, both Ben and his assistant are waving the trans flag, the baby blue and pink and white flag. Because like I said, it's Superman's cape. You can't criticize Ben, because if you do, you're a transphobe. Actually, I think we might have a clip of that. It looks like the most recent one. Shall we run that, guys?
To be starting a new woke monarchy. You will only be allowed to do Uber Eats in Toronto if you are white. As mayor of Toronto, we're going to be starting a new tax on all companies that make any profit. If you make anything over what you need to make to pay your bills to keep your business open, you will be taxed 100%.
And that's sent straight to the World Economic Forum for your safety.
My dad.
Save money, cut out the middleman.
We're going to be starting a new World Economic Forum tax in the city. So all goods and services will now have an additional 15%, 17, 19, 30% tax on all goods and services will now be going to Klaus Schwab. vote Bambankas. All the other candidates are racist.
See, Drea, has absolutely nothing to do with transgenderism, but fly the trans flag. That's your cloak of invulnerability. And also, tell me, what do you think? His assistant, with a little bit of makeup, could he pass himself off as Justin Trudeau? I think there's an uncanny resemblance there.
Oh man, that's not so nice. That's not so nice. I haven't looked at the comments of that ad there, but what's really alarming on some of the other ads is this is so normal now, this type of talk and wokeism, that people aren't even laughing. They're like, they can't tell if this is joke, if this is true, if this is a serious campaign. So anyways, that's a lot.
Well,
too.
I can hardly wait for the by-election for mayor of Toronto. It'll be interesting to see who comes out. It's going to be a circus. It'll also be fascinating, Drea, to see when the debates are taking place, who gets to choose who gets onto that platform and why. Talk about electoral interference, especially when it comes to the elites. That is another disturbing trend of not having the voices of others heard. And even if you're a clown candidate, a stand-up comedian, I don't care. Your opinion is just as valid as anyone else. And if you've paid the fee to register and run for mayor, you should be entitled to do so. Because we've advertised that we should get to, I see that Thomas Jefferson, Mr. Zelensky was addressing was it the UN or NATO? I'm not sure which.
Talking about NATO.
NATO, okay then. And this man was claiming it's dangerous for Americans to question the amount of aid being given to Ukraine, because if Ukraine loses, Russia is going to enter Baltic states and so on. I'm not sure I appreciate being dictated to that way, by the way. Especially us, Drea, our business, well, it is asking questions, but, Zelensky knows best. And if you dare criticize him, I guess you're a Ukraine phobe. Let's run that video.
And I'm actually very happy that we have bipartisan support, but we keep hearing those messages from time to time, and they're dangerous. There are political leaders that are elected by people, and if this issue is raised, those political leaders need to be responsible and cautious, because people are looking at them. Who wants a third world war? Would anyone Would anyone be willing to accept that risk? The U.S. is never going to give up on the NATO member states. If it happens so that Ukraine, due to various opinions and weakening and depleting of assistance, loses, Russia is going to enter Baltic states, NATO member states, and then the U.S. will have to send their sons and daughters exactly the same way as we are sending their sons and daughters to war, and they will have to fight. Because it's NATO that we're talking about, and they will be dying, God forbid, because it's a horrible thing.
Well, thank goodness he added in that God forbid caveat, Drea.
At the end.
Your thoughts on what he just said?
Well, I think it's a lot of, you better, come to our aid, give us money, or else your kids are going to die. I mean, that's really the message there. I'm glad that we showed more context to it, because I do know that a shorter clip is going on. I don't even think God forbid is added in there. So he is speaking hypothetically here. But yeah, you have to ask questions. And he's saying sort of his I think it's a lot of fear, right? It's do this or else. And I don't know, has he looked at the US lately? Isn't it, aren't you a toxic male if you want to fight and defend your country? I don't know if we have a lot of kids to do so.
Well, Drea, you're a mother, I'm a father. I do believe in such a concept as a just war. However, if this did escalate, would you want any of your children to be conscripted to go over to Ukraine to fight that war? I can tell you, for me, not a chance.
No. And I don't think Americans want that or Canadians want that. But he, according to him, is saying you have no choice. This is what's going to happen if you don't get on board with basically what we're saying now.
Yeah. I say that in the context, Drea, that it is undeniable that Russia was the aggressor. They went into Ukraine just over a year ago. However, the idea of depicting Zelensky as the second coming of Jefferson or Abraham Lincoln, no, there's no vibe there. He is a dictator of a different sort. He's not that far removed from Putin. He shut down democratic rights. He arrests so-called enemies of the state. I know that's very unpopular to all the people putting the flag of Ukraine on their social media memes and driving around with that flag. And by the way, I really wonder,
if
that's
they would
really
want their kids.
It's very easy in terms of support to put a car flag, the blue and gold car flag on your vehicle. But I wonder if even these people would sign up to go overseas to fight this war. I highly doubt it.
Yeah, would they sign their kids up? Which is essentially what's being said here. So I highly doubt that too. Hopefully we don't have to find out.
Yeah. In any event, why don't we throw to our last ad break, and we'll come back. We'll see if we have any more chats, and then we'll just wrap up. Hopefully something on the lighter side. Oh, that would be Greta Thunberg getting arrested again.
If you want to look good and shine like me, you can do so at our store. Go to ribbonnewstore.com. On this website, you have so much different style to wear, as this one, my favorite one, Justin Castro. With my code Alexa10, you will have 10% off on your next purchase. So don't hesitate, go now and look so good like me.
Well, since it is World Compliment Day, I will compliment our beloved colleague, Alexa Lavoie, kind of looking like a Gap girl model, Quebec style, with that beautiful Rebel News merch that you can wear for yourself, folks. As I promised, why don't we see the latest in terms of Greta Thunberg? She just loves being in the news, doesn't she? And evidently, goodness gracious, she was arrested. For what? Well, let's take a look.
Good luck in prison.
Here it goes.
Well,
you gotta play a little longer than that if you can, like just a few seconds longer, because I think it's really important to see what happens after they put her down, if you can. I don't know if you have that clip, but they put her down, and then a woman just puts her arm around her, and she just walks off, and oh wait, look.
Yeah, it's kabuki theater. If the police wanted to really piss off Greta Thunberg, they wouldn't arrest her. I didn't actually see any handcuffs going on. It looks like they gave her a free ride to the curb by literally carrying her. But if they really wanted to bother her, they would ignore her. This is an attention seeker. This was the goal of her being there, was to do this kabuki theater where I'm being dragged away by these mean law enforcement people.
Right.
I I've even lost sight of the message. It had something to do with a wind farm, I believe, in Norway.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about that. So now the wind farms are being attacked too. Like, you know, they're coming from their own. So I'm confused about that. But it looks to me like somebody who, some sort of royalty that doesn't want to get their shoes dirty in the puddle. That's what they were doing to her. They carry her over there. And you're right. If they really wanted to act on this, how come she's not getting a knock on her door the next day after these protests from police coming to arrest her? And what is the goal here besides photo ops and great video clips? You know, is it for young people to sort of start to believe that it's totally okay to protest in a way that's going to get you arrested? Because this is happening, you know, back to back, basically. We're seeing it happen. And detained. Yeah, that's so funny. She just walks off hand in hand. It's just
unbelievable.
Again, the clown world keeps spinning.
It is. And speaking of clown world, why don't we wrap the show with one last video? It was a very important announcement, Drea, by President Joe Biden regarding the nursing profession or something. Let's listen to Sleepy Joe in all his glory.
A nurse named Pearl Nelson, military. She'd come in and do things that I don't think you learn in medical school, nursing school. She'd whisper in my ear. I couldn't understand him. She'd whisper, she'd lean down. She'd actually breathe on me to make sure that there was a connection, a human connection. She even went home and brought back her pillow from her own bed because she knew the one I had, the one comfortable. But I'm not joking.
Is this the president weighing in on nursing, Drea, or is this like a first draft of a porn script? I mean, breathing in his ear, pillows. I mean, what? Now I'm going to be serious. Here's the serious question. What in blue hell was he talking about in that clip?
Not only that, maybe it's him trying to cover up for sniffing children. Maybe he's trying to say, hey, I wasn't sniffing the children. I was whispering sweet nothings in their ear and breathing on them just so they knew there was a physical connection between us. I mean, if I'm going to make sense of it, that's the sense I'm taking from it.
Unbelievable. As you said just a few seconds ago, Clown World giving the bizarro Superman planet a run for its money. Well, I guess that wraps up everything. It's 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, far earlier where you are, Drea. But thank you so much for filling in for Sheila Gunn Reid, and thank you to Olivia and Ephraim behind the board, and thank you to Fraser McBurney for that $5 donation. Greatly appreciated. I'll be back in this seat, I think with Sheila, tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern. As always, folks, stay safe and stay sane.
That climate change has transformed the way we live. That climate action is at once urgent and an enormous economic opportunity. That's what we've been driving at, that the environment and the economy go hand in hand. Canadians know this. A recent poll shows that 75% of Canadians agree that climate change is a threat that requires urgent action. And more than half are concerned about the impact of climate change on the economy.